So today I'm going to be reviewing Dead Sushi. Came out in 2012, and the director is Noboru Iguchi. He is a very strange individual. He has done a lot of Japanese porn movies. So yeah, he's in a lot of Japanese porn, and then he kind of started getting into a lot of low budget comedy horror flicks. He's done movies like The Machine Girl, Robo Geisha, Mean Girl Squad, Zombie Ass, Dead Sushi, and yeah, his movies are kind of weird, kind of out there. If you guys have seen my review for Tokyo Gore Police, you kind of get a sense about what kind of movies he's done. Speaking of Tokyo Gore Police, Yoshihiro Nishimura, the writer and director for Tokyo Gore Police, is actually involved in this movie. He does the special effects and makeup. So expect to see a lot of crazy, over-the-top gore when it comes to this movie. So for anyone wondering what Dead Sushi is about, here's the premise. After a bad turn of luck, a researcher injects his former employer's lunches with a potion that turns their sushi into flesh-eating monsters. Yeah, doesn't that sound kind of crazy? So Noboru Iguchi got the idea to write this movie after watching the film Piranha 3D, as well as being influenced by Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. So you kind of get a sense about what this is about. This is basically sushi coming to life and attacking people. And again, because I said Yoshihiro Nishimura is involved, expect a lot of crazy over-the-top violence. So with all that said, let's kind of just jump right into this. Our main character is Keiko. She's played by Rina Takeda, and I think Rina does a pretty good job on this. So Keiko is a young woman who wants to be a sushi chef, just like her father. Her father is a famous sushi chef and has trained her all her life. He has trained her in martial arts to basically try to get rid of all her femininity, because he believes that her femininity holds her back from being a good sushi chef. I don't know how that is, but yeah, that's what he believes. And he basically, his training is pretty rough and pretty brutal. So not only does he train her in martial arts, where he basically just uses that as an excuse to kick her ass, but he also does crazy things. Like there's one moment where he grabs her hand, puts it on a table, grabs a knife, and then starts trying to chop her fingers, and she has to move her fingers out of the way. And the reason for this is, he says, to become a great sushi chef, you must put your mind into the role of a sushi. So, as you're slicing, you got to pretend you're the sushi. So now, I guess he's trying to train her that her fingers are now going to be the sushi, so dodge the knife. I don't know how that makes any sense, but that's how he trains her. He puts weights on her arms so that, she has to lift weights as she's pressing the rice into the salmon and stuff. Just a bunch of weird training stuff. And she tries her best, but she doesn't live up to his standards. And he basically, says, no matter how hard you try, you will always be a woman. And I guess women can't be sushi chefs for some reason. So of course she's she apologizes, I can't change what I was born with. I can't change how I am. And so she runs away, and she decides to take up a job at this inn, and she becomes one of the waitresses. And she's a new girl. The other waitresses kind of poke fun at her. There's a moment where the waitresses are carrying 2 platters each, and she's only carrying 1. And they basically tell her that carrying only 1 is inefficient. Here, try carrying 5. And they basically put their platters on top of hers, and it's too much, and if falls on her, she gets all messy. And that's when this company comes in. It's basically it's the president of this company, a pharmaceutical company, and his entourage of employees. And they're here because this place apparently has some of the greatest sushi ever. And all the waitresses line up, and she shows up, and she's all covered in food and stuff because it fell on her and she didn't have time to change. And of course, the inn hostess and owner, who are husband and wife, they basically berate her for looking so sloppy in front of everybody, in front of all the customers. They take her into the back where they just yell at her and stuff and basically say like, we're barely surviving at this inn. It's only our sushi that's getting us through, and you're ruining this for us. You're taking this as a joke. Don't screw up again. And then they go inside, and then that's when she meets Sawada. And Sawada is awesome. Sawada is right now he's a janitor, but he was a former sushi chef of the inn. But we'll get to his story a little bit later. But yeah, he's a janitor now. He sees her and he basically tells Keiko like, your hands are beautiful. Like they were made to work with fish. Like you have the hands of a sushi chef. Don't let this place bring you down. If this doesn't work out for you, there are plenty of jobs out there that you can take. Whatever you do, make sure to take care of your hands. And then he kind of disappears. And so after this pep talk, we see this couple, and they are showing up at the inn, and the boyfriend is upset that they've had to walk so long. Like, the girlfriend's the one that brought them to this inn, but the boyfriend didn't think it was going to be such a long walk, so he demands his payment a kiss. And so he starts kissing her, and it's just like this really weird scene because they're making like sloppy noises as they kiss. And then they realize that there's this bum, and the bum is watching them making out. And then the boyfriend's like, what the hell are you watching us for, you old pervert? And the boyfriend knows that there's something poking out of the bum's coat. And he realizes that it's a plate of sushi. And the boyfriend runs over and kicks the sushi out of the bum's hands and kind of, stomps on the bum for a while and starts walking away. And that's when the bum gets up and he's pissed off. He's like, how dare you waste food? He pulls out this squid, and the squid comes to life and starts flying and starts charging at the two couple. And so the couple are running away. They run into this little, I don't know if they run into like an inn or they run inside this building. And the sushi charges at the girlfriend and slices her head off, and her head flies, and the boyfriend turns around, and he's screaming. He sticks out his tongue for some reason, and the girlfriend's decapitated head lands on his mouth and basically like bites onto his tongue. So now they're basically locked in this kiss, and then the squid flies and stabs him in the head and kills them both. And then the bum shows up and he grabs the squid and pulls it out, and he apologizes for using the squid in that way. Yeah, I know this sounds really weird, but I swear to you, this happens. So then we see the inn sushi chef, and he's making sushi, and he starts flirting with the hostess of the inn, despite the fact that she's married. And then they start making out. And then we cut to president of the pharmaceutical company, and all his employees are in this room kneeling down, and they're basically about to get a sushi feast. And the chef is like showing off his skills or whatever, and he lines up these different types of sushis, and the president and his secretary pick up a sushi each, and they start talking about the flavors and the quality and the way you dip into the soy sauce, and then they start eating and talking about how delicious it is. And then they bring like an egg sushi rather than it's like basically like a rice patty with fried egg on top rather than like fish. And the president gets all pissed off. He's like, how dare you call this sushi? Sushi has to have fish on it. And Keiko is like, you guys are a bunch of idiots. She kind of mumbles this, but everyone hears. And they're like, what are you talking about? What did you say? And she basically gets confronted by everyone, and they basically force her, like, what are you talking about? And she finally is like, all right, fine, you guys, since you guys asked for it. The sushi is terrible. The way the sushi chef cooks it is wrong. He doesn't, push his fingers into the rice as he's putting it onto the sushi roll, so the flavors don't get mixed in. The way you guys dip your soy sauce, you dip it on the fish and then you just put it in your mouth. What you should do is dip it fish side and then turn it over so that the soy sauce drips into the rice and gets soaked up, and then that's how you eat it. Everything you're doing is wrong. And then of course they get pissed off. The sushi chef gets really upset and is basically like, how dare you dishonor me as a sushi chef? He rushes over to his kitchen, grabs a knife, and then he starts charging at Keiko and trying to stab her. So yeah, he's basically trying to commit murder in front of all these people. And she basically uses her martial arts skills to knock him down and stomps his face until he gets knocked out. And then that's when the president's co-workers are like, they're upset at the fact that she also dishonored, the president of the pharmaceutical company. So all the co-workers start attacking her. And we basically get a fight scene where she's fighting off all these co-workers. And the fight scene gets pretty hilarious at parts. There's parts where she's like ripping off their robes and using like their robes to like choke them or trip them and stuff. There's one scene where she strips a guy completely naked, and he basically is just laying on the floor holding his crotch, and the robe belt is like tied around his leg, and she has the other end, and she's running around and like tripping people. And as she's like running around, he's like spinning in circles because she's spinning him as she's running. And he's just basically yelling about how embarrassing this is as she's doing this. It's a lot funnier than I'm making it out to be. But yeah, she basically starts beating the crap out of all of them until eventually one of the guys, his name is Nosaka, he's like the second in command. He stops one of the coworkers from punching her in the face, and he's basically like, knock it off. She's right. You guys are a bunch of idiots. Just stop doing this. And then that's when the secretary gets like pissed off, and she's like, she dishonored the president. She grabs the sushi chef's knife, and she starts chasing Keiko. And Keiko runs out of the room, and the secretary runs after her, trying to stab her with the knife. So yeah, basically these people are psychos who seem to have no problem with murder. And the president is basically yelling at Nosaka, like, the only reason that you're still on the company is because, you do such a great job and stuff. But if you do one more thing like that again, like, you're getting fired. Like, you got to follow all my orders from now on. And then that's when the bum shows up and grabs the president by his neck and starts choking him. And then it turns out that the bum was actually a scientist at the company. And we get a flashback where he was told by the company to do this research to reanimate dead cells. And so we get a flashback where he's like using these injections into like dead deers, and they're coming back to life. And the flashbacks are just very comical just because of his expression as he's like staring at this deer that's coming back to life. But yeah, he basically says how the serum not only brings the dead cells back to life as zombies, but anything that they bite also comes back to life and becomes zombies. And so because of this, the pharmaceutical company like wanted to wash their hands of this mess, so they blamed it all on him. And the police, locked him up, and he went to prison. And then when he got out, he lost everything. So that's why he's a bum. He lost everything because this pharmaceutical company backstabbed him when he was like their number one scientist. And now he's going to get revenge. But before he can get revenge, the inn owner shows up with a gun and shoots the bum twice in the back. He falls to the floor. And that's when everyone else kind of like leaves. I guess they're just going to leave the dead body there. And as everyone leaves, the bum is still alive, and he pulls out this needle that has the dead cell reanimated serum in it. And he has the squid with him, and he injects the squid with the serum, and the squid flies out to go commit more disasters. And so we have a scene where two of the co-workers are inside this room, and they're taking turns eating sushi, and the squid goes in there and it starts infecting the sushi. And so one of the co-workers like puts it in his mouth, and he starts biting, and the sushi starts biting the inside of his mouth. And so he spits it out, and his mouth is just like bleeding like crazy. And he just starts grabbing more sushi because apparently he's really hungry or something. So he's putting more and more sushi in his mouth, and they just keep biting him, and they bite off his tongue. And he's just having all this blood squirting everywhere. And he dies. And the other coworker sees this, and he runs out of the room. And as this is going on, Keiko is still being chased by the secretary, who's still trying to kill her with the knife. And so we get like a brief fight scene, which ends with Keiko's like, there's a sushi a flying sushi coming right at us. And the secretary doesn't believe her, but eventually she finds out that there actually is one. And Keiko gets like hit and she falls, through a door, and the door locks behind her. And then the flying sushi grabs into the secretary's tongue and starts biting her. And then that's when one of the coworkers shows up, and this coworker was like infatuated with her. And as this sushi is like pulling out her tongue, the coworker's just standing there staring at her boobs, and like he really wants to grab them. And he's like, well, this woman's gonna die soon anyways. No one's gonna know if I grab her breast, right? So he goes in to try to grab her breast when more sushi come flying in and go into her mouth. And basically there's so much sushi in her mouth that her eyeballs pop out and she drops dead. And then more flying sushi start coming, and so the coworker starts running away. So yeah. Then we have Keiko, and Keiko, she's trying to get out of the room, but the door is locked. And then all of a sudden she hears a noise, and Sawada comes in. And Sawada is tied up. The bum basically had attacked him earlier and tied him up, but let him live. And so Keiko frees him, and that's when Sawada explains his backstory. That he used to be the #1 sushi. In the end, he was the master sushi chef. And then one day, one of the customers dishonored him by critiquing his sushi, and so he pulled out a knife. Because apparently that's what sushi chefs do. If you dishonor them by criticizing their sushi, they have to pull out a knife on you and try to kill you. So if you guys ever go to a sushi restaurant, do not ever criticize the sushi in front of the chef, because I mean, he has a license to pull his knife out on you and stab you. Like, it's just, that's the rules, okay? I don't make them up. That's how they are. So anyways, he pulls out a knife and he goes to stab the customer when his wife dives in front of the knife and takes the knife instead, and she dies. And because of that, he quits being a sushi chef. Like, he's afraid of knives, and because he's afraid of knives, he can't cut sushi. So his days of being a sushi chef are over. And that's his whole story. Really weird backstory, but that's what it is. And he's basically talking with her about, like, how the hell are we going to get out of this room because the doors are locked. And that's when we cut to the inn owner, who's arriving at the body of the bum, because he's going to bury the bum somewhere so that, the police don't show up and he can keep his inn running and stuff like that. And he realizes that the bum's body is gone. And that's when he sees the bum across the hall from him. And the bum is still alive. And the owner freaks out. He starts running up the stairs. He bumps heads with with one of the pharmaceutical co-workers, the same one that was trying to grab the secretary's breast. And they see the flying squid coming at them. And it latches onto the co-worker's face. And then that's when we cut to probably the most disturbing scene in this entire movie. So we cut to the hostess and the sushi chef in the middle of their affair. Basically, they start making out because they love each other or whatever. And that's when she says, "Let's kiss the way Japanese do it." And I'm like, okay, what exactly does that mean? And apparently what that means is you get out an egg, you crack it open into a small bowl, and then you basically get rid of all the whites, so all you have is the yolk. And then you put the yolk in your mouth, and then you take turns spitting it into each other's mouth. So yeah, that's what happens. They basically start rolling around on top of each other, taking turns spitting this yolk into each other's mouth. It's really gross, which is kind of funny. Like, I mean, there's a lot of like violent, gory stuff. Not as bad as Tokyo Gore Police in this movie. Tokyo Gore Police like took it to another level. This one is like super mild compared to that. But I mean, there's like over the top crazy stuff like that. But this scene is just like, oh man, it's just gross. They're basically snowballing each other with egg yolk. And as they're doing this, the squid shows up and starts infecting the sushi platter. So all the other sushi platters get contaminated with this, zombie virus stuff. Then we come back to Keiko, and her and Sarada are trying to open up the locked door, but they're not having any luck. And that's when they see the egg sushi. And the egg sushi shoots something out of its mouth, and they dodge it, and then they realize that it's shooting acid. How an egg sushi is shooting acid, I don't know, but that's what's happening. And so Keiko goes to kill it when she realizes that it's shaking, and she notices that it's scared. And the egg sushi basically, says, please, don't hurt me. And she decides, you know what? Okay, like I won't hurt you, but don't hurt us. And so now she has an egg sushi pet, and this pet's name is Eggy. And so she uses Eggy to spit acid onto the door so that the knob, melts off and they can escape. And so, yeah, they make their escape. Meanwhile, we cut to the pharmaceutical president and Nosaka and some of the other coworkers, as well as two of the waitresses and the hostess and the sushi chef. And this is basically going to be like a private sushi dinner. And the president says, because of the incident that happened earlier and because of the murder that you guys commit, I want a body sushi, a body platter sushi. And if you guys don't give me that, then I'm going to call the cops. And so she has the two waitresses strip and does the body platter sushi. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, basically a woman either gets naked or she strips to her bra and panties, lays down, and then a bunch of like sushi ingredients and stuff like that are put on her body, and then you use chopsticks to eat off her body. So they do that with the girls, and as we saw earlier, the sushi was infected. So what do you think happens? The sushi that's on the two girls come to life and start biting them. And so as this is going on, we cut to Keiko, who's trying to get into the area to warn them that the sushi is alive, when she sees the coworker that was attacked by the squid. And the squid is still on his face. Now there's another sushi that's also biting his face. And the two are basically pulling his cheeks apart. And so his face is all like effed up. And he knows he's going to die. And he basically wants Keiko to kiss him before he dies. But of course she doesn't want to do that. And the sushi pulls out his face, rips his skin off, so it's just his muscles are showing. He runs into the room where the president's at to warn the president about what's going on. They think it's an intruder, so they shoot him dead. And then the sushi that's on the women start becoming more noticeable. Blood starts squirting everywhere as the sushi really digs into these women. Meanwhile, Keiko gets chased by a huge flying horde of sushi. I don't know how sushi are flying, but yeah, they fly in this movie. They fly now? They fly now. So, so the sushi is flying at Keiko. Eggy basically hits Keiko in the face to cause her to duck so that the horde of sushi runs past her and into the room. And it starts attacking the pharmaceutical president and his coworkers and stuff, and they're fighting it off. Or at least they're trying to, but they're getting attacked and eaten. And Keiko runs in there and she starts fighting the flying sushi and kicking it and punching it and doing her best to stop it. During all this, the sushi chef gets hit in the face by sushi, which slices off his eyes. He grabs the knife and he starts blindly like swinging his knife, and he ends up cutting his nose and his lips off by accident. I don't know how he does this, but yeah, he basically disfigures himself by accident. And then he dies. Like he dies from his wounds. And some of the other coworkers start dying. One of the waitresses starts dying. The hostess runs out and she's like crying about the fact that her lover's dead. And then a sushi crawls up her leg and goes inside her. I believe it goes inside her vagina because she makes a face and she basically says it's inside me. So yeah, this woman has a sushi inside her vagina. And she starts, spazzing out, and then her husband pops out, and her husband's like pissed off, like, how dare you cheat on me? Like, I pulled you off from the streets and I gave you, shelter, and I made you the hostess, and this is how you repay me. And he's about to stab her. These people have like no problems with stabbing each other apparently, but he's about to stab her when Sawada shows up and basically says, knock it off. Like, a husband should never stab his wife. You two should put aside your anger, show each other love. And then that's when we cut to the pharmaceutical president and Nosaka. And they're running away. They're trying to leave the inn when they see the bum blocking the door. And then the bum basically says, oh, no, Nosaka, you're still around. Like, I know it was you who set me up. And Nosaka tries to say, like, the president, forced me to. But the bum's not buying it. He grabs two of the serums, he injects them to himself, and then he turns into a giant humanoid tuna. Yeah, I just said that, and no, I'm not lying. And that really happens in this movie. A lot of things in this movie, like you're not really gonna believe it, but yes, that's what happens. He turns into a giant humanoid tuna, and he's gonna kill them. And that's when Nosaka handcuffs the president to a pillar, and he basically tells the president, like, I've been waiting for this moment, for a long time. I can now finally get rid of you, and with you gone and out of the way, I'll become the new president. And then he runs out, and the humanoid tuna has an axe, and he swings it at the president, but he misses, and he ends up breaking the handcuffs. And the president runs, and he runs into a hot tub, and he tries to like duck under the water. I don't know why he thinks that ducking in the water would be able to hide him from the tuna man, but he thinks it does. And that's when this woman shows up, and the woman is, I guess, one of the inn's customers that we never saw until now. But she strips naked, and she starts like washing her hair, and she's basically talking about how great this inn is, and how it's so great to have a hot tub all to herself, and that there better not be any perverts, because if there are, she is going to do a lot of damage to them. She's going to beat them up, call the cops, ruin their reputation. And as she's saying all this, the tuna man shows up, and he slices the president's head off, and the blood squirts out of the president all over this customer. And she has her eyes closed because she's putting shampoo in her hair, and so she's just like, oh, this nice warm water, and she's basically rubbing this president's blood all over her. So yeah, another comical moment there. And then we cut to Keiko, Sawada, one of the waitresses, and two of the pharmaceutical co-workers. They are about to run out of the building when they see two sushis on a pole having sex. Yes, there is sushi sex in this movie. So the two sushis are having sex when the sushi on top, like, I guess, ejaculates into the sushi below it, and the sushi below it like opens up. And so yeah, that's when all these like little baby sushi start flying out, and then one of them is like, none of this makes any goddamn sense. And I'm like, yeah, I'm with you there, buddy. And so Keiko's gonna give up when Sawada and the inn owner and his wife show up, and they're basically like, you can't give up. We gotta get out of here. And even Eggy tries to egg her on, and that pun was not intended. But yeah, everyone's like, we can make this. And Keiko's like, yes, we can do it. And then that's when one of the coworkers starts spitting up rice, and it turns out that he's a zombie. Yeah, apparently if you get bitten by these sushi creatures, you can become a zombie. So he's a zombie now. More zombies show up, and they start closing in on the group when Sawada's like, there's a building 20 yards away that I used to practice, my sushi skills back when I was a sushi chef. We can make a run for it. And so they rush out, and they start running towards the building. And along the way, the horde of flying sushi catch up to them and eats the waitress alive. Eats her until she's nothing left but bits of meat and skeleton. And then it continues chasing the rest of the group. And then that's when one of the pharmaceutical coworkers, the last one that's still alive, he pulls out his bat, and he's like, I'm gonna kill this thing. And Keiko's like, wait, that sushi's different from all the others. And the sushi opens up, and it has a flamethrower, and it flames his head. It flames his head, and he starts screaming, motherfucking roast sushi, as this thing is flaming his head. And he's like, you know what? If you're going to flame me, I'm going to at least try it out. And he opens it up his mouth, and he grabs the sushi and eats it. And the sushi explodes inside of him. This movie's freaking weird. But they make it into the building where Keiko sees Nosaka. Nosaka is eating ramen. And she's like, how the hell can you eat at a time like this? And he's like, I grew up in poverty. If you can't eat at a time like this, you're not going to survive. He's like, there's more ramen there if you want some. Don't worry, there's no fish or anything in here, so it's perfectly fine. And that's when the zombies reach the building, and they start trying to break their way in, but the group tries to hold them off. And then that's when the hostess starts spazzing out, and she's like, I'm becoming a zombie too. and she asks her husband for forgiveness for cheating on him, and then she charges at the zombies and pushes them out and becomes a zombie herself. And then the owner is like, you're not gonna bite anybody but me, and he rushes to his wife, and his wife bites him, and now he becomes a zombie as well. Yeah, as this is going on, Keiko and Sawada like run upstairs, and a whole bunch of the sushi horde show up and start flying at the two when Sawada screams, and somehow his scream is so loud that sound waves come out and it kills the sushi. And Keiko's like, what the hell just happened? And Sawada's like, I have no idea, but I think they're dead. And Keiko's like, it was your voice. Your voice was so loud that the sound waves killed them. So basically, Sawada becomes Black Canary and starts using his banshee scream to kill these hordes. And that's when they're like, all right, we know how to stop them. And they put on sushi chef clothing. Keiko gets a bunch of non-infected sushi and sticks them together and makes a sushi nunchuck. I'm not kidding you. She makes a nunchuck out of sushi. And then she rushes outside and starts using the sushi nunchuck to fight the zombies. So she's fighting the zombies with the sushi nunchuck and killing them. Meanwhile, inside, Sawada is using his Black Canary Banshee scream to kill the sushi horde that are attacking him, and then he's scooping up their dead bodies and cutting off the nerves to make them into just regular non-infected sushi. And then that's when Tuna Man shows up, and Tuna Man starts fighting Keiko, and their fight is pretty even. And that's when Tuna Man spits out a bunch of sushi from his mouth, and then all the sushi form together into a giant battleship and starts shooting rockets at Keiko, and she like dives out of the way from the explosive rockets. Yeah. And then Eggy is like, all right, I'm going to take care of the battleship. So Eggy runs and starts, distracting the battleship so Keiko can take on the Tuna Man by herself. And the Tuna Man knocks her down, is about to stab her when he gets shot in the back, and Nosaka shows up. And he's like, don't worry. You're not going to die. That was just a tranquilizer. I'm like, what kind of tranquilizer is this? Because when he shoots Tuna Man in the back, there's like a huge splatter of blood. Like, this thing basically impacts like a bullet, but apparently it's just a tranquilizer. But yeah, he's like, I'm going to keep you alive so that I can study you back at my, pharmacy now that I'm the new president. And then that's when Tuna Man starts laughing, and he's like, you're dead meat, Nosaka. Like, you ate the ramen, didn't you? Well, what you didn't know was that there was some sushi inside the ramen. And Nosaka's face starts basically getting huger and huger and huger until his cheeks start popping and ramen noodles start gushing out, and then he falls over dead. And Keiko starts fighting the Tuna Man again. Eggy starts taking blast after blast from the battleship sushi, but it's able to gather up enough strength to push the battleship, and it pushes the battleship into Tuna Man, and the two get wrapped up by chains. So basically, Tuna Man and this tuna battleship and this sushi battleship are wrapped up together. And Keiko does this jumping, flying spin kick at Tuna Man that launches him into the air, Team Rocket style. And then as he's flying into the distance, he explodes into fireworks, and the fireworks display a giant firework tuna in the sky. And Tuna Man's dead. And Sawada uses his voice to kill the last of the sushi. Keiko and Sawada celebrate, and Sawada basically tells her, I made my special sushi platter for you. Don't worry, I cut off all the nerves, so this is regular sushi. You won't get contaminated. And she eats it, and it's delicious. And he basically gives her this speech about how, she did a great job. She's going to be a great sushi chef. She has, great hands, and I'm glad that you kept your hands from getting dirty. Basically, it's like him telling her, go back to your father and become the great sushi chef that I know you can be. So She goes back to her father's restaurant. She apologizes to him for running away. I'm kind of like, girl, why are you apologizing? Your dad was the one that was being a jerk. I mean, he was being pretty misogynistic towards you. Like, he tried to train you in martial arts, not because he wanted you to be able to protect yourself or anything, but because he wanted to try to destroy any femininity that you had, because he doesn't believe that females can be great sushi chefs. Like, your dad's kind of a dick. But yeah, she apologizes, and he welcomes her back, and that's when all of a sudden a sushi that's still alive appears on her shoulder and rushes at her dad. And Keiko jumps over the counter, pulls on her sushi clothing, grabs the sushi in midair, throws it on the table, slices off its nerve so it becomes a regular sushi, and then she grabs some rice and turns it into a little sushi ball. And she basically says, my name is Keiko, and I'm the only female sushi chef that cooks living sushi. If you don't believe me, give me your best shot or whatever. And then she kind of thrusts the sushi at the camera, and that's how it ends. So yeah, this movie was really freaking weird. It's so weird and crazy and over the top, and I love it. I love movies like this. Like, I love schlocky movies, and I love schlocky movies that know that they're schlocky. Like, movies that know, like, you know what, we're not serious at all. We know that this is stupid and goofy, and we're just going to have fun with it. And that's basically what this movie is. This movie, you can tell that, like, the cast and crew were just basically having fun with the script, and they were just having a blast shooting these really stupid and weird and crazy and over-the-top scenes. Like, nothing really makes sense, especially, like, when it comes to physics and things. I mean, the whole premise is about a scientist who reanimates dead cells and decides to use the serum to reanimate Sushi so that he can get revenge on the people that fired him and ruined his life. And so Sushi comes to life, and it flies around, and it eats people. And the people that it bites and eats and kills, it turns them into rice-spewing zombies. Like, none of this makes any sense. But it's good, stupid fun, and I love it. I love movies like this. I love movies that, like the Sushi Typhoon movie. For anyone who doesn't know what Sushi Typhoon is, picture Blumhouse, but the Japanese version, super low budget, and a lot of crazy humor and over-the-top gore. That's pretty much what Sushi Typhoon was. Sadly, they didn't last long. I think they started in 2010, and then they kind of went defunct in 2012. But I mean, here's some of the movies that they made: Alien vs. Ninja, Mutant Girl Squad, Deadball, Hell Driver, Yakuza Weapon. Like, they do just like crazy, over the top action, gory splatter films. And this is not a Sushi Typhoon movie as far as I know, but it has that same vein, and I love movies like this. I love movies like this. I love movies like Tokyo Gore Police, like The Machine Girl. Like, I love movies that are just stupid, dumb fun. Like, this is basically like, this is like the weirdest anime you've ever seen, but live action. That's the best way I can describe this movie. And it's great. I freaking love it. So I highly recommend checking out Dead Sushi. You can watch it for free on Tubi. So yeah, go check it out. There's also a dubbed version. And the dubbed version isn't all that bad either. So if you're one of those people that can't watch sub, you can go watch dub. I don't think the dub is on Tubi, but you can find it online through, Sailing the High Seas and stuff like that. Though I do recommend buying the DVD, because it's great. I mean, I guess watch it first, and then if you like it, support it by buying the DVD like I have. It's a fantastic movie. I love it. It's so stupid, but I don't know. I think that's why I love it so much. So yeah, I don't know how much I can gush about it. Nothing I would really criticize. I mean, if I were to write this movie, I would change a lot, just like the flow and the pacing and stuff. Then again, because of the fact that this movie is just so weird and out there, and like even the editing and the flow of it is so stupid and dumb, I think it kind of gives it its own charm. I think if you try to tell a good structural story with this movie, it wouldn't be as great as it is now. I think it's just because of the fact that it's just so crazy and out there. Like, not just the actions, but just the pacing and everything is weird. Like, things just pop out of nowhere. Nothing makes any sense. The fact that the sushi chefs are trying to kill each other, just, you know, they attack this girl, they attack Keiko just because she dishonored him. The fact that the pharmaceutical company people are trying to attack her. The fact that there's flying sushi. The fact that she makes a nunchuck out of sushi and uses it to fight rice zombies. That there's a guy who injected himself with the serum and becomes a tuna man. The fact that there's sushi that shoots flamethrowers. Everything about this movie is so stupid, but it's so awesome because it's so stupid. So yeah, there you go. There's Dead Sushi. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Tell me what you guys think. I hope to see you guys next time. Take care, everybody. Later. You know, I'm kind of in the mood for sushi right now.